Hi everybody, Gary Ugaric here again from G-Force Quality Solutions. It's a consulting firm I own that specializes in FDA-regulated industries such as pharmaceuticals, biotech, and medical device, specializing in quality management systems. So I had already discussed a video about the link of the recruiters and how they interact with the organizations to understand the true scope of a project, to bid a project correctly, and to make sure that they compensate the consultants or contractors that are going to be executing said project correctly. One of the other things I would like to talk about is something I did on my last project, which was selection of an eQMS. eQMS stands for Electronic Quality Management Systems. And those of you that work in the FDA-regulated industries are familiar with this in other terms such as TrackWise, ETQ, BioVia, Pilgrim Systems, things of that nature. So on my recent project, we were working with a fairly new system in the industry known as VivaVault. Now, VivaVault is very well known within the clinical capacities. They have a great clinical trial management component. They have a CRM solution that allows the life sciences providers, the doctors and the salespeople to discuss products and gain more insight into the sciences. One of the modules I was working with was a fairly new module they added in, which was their QMS. Now, VivaVault offers a quality document management solution, which is actually a really good solution. And there's a funny story behind this, which I'll get to in a bit. But their quality solution's a little on the green side. It's fairly new, was only launched within, I think, the last year. And it was, I believe, their total customer count, using the entire QMS suite is somewhere in the under 100 users. I believe it's actually very much less than that, but we're just going to round it up to around 100 users. Originally, on the project I was working on, I had qualified and demonstrated, evaluated 9 vendors in 10 days. And those vendors included ZenQMS, Master Control, Sparta's 123 Compliance. There was a BioVia. There was Doc Excellence. And there was a few others I can't remember the names of. And reason I can't really remember the names of them is that during the demonstration or evaluation of the software itself, didn't really impress me or the other process owners or stakeholders that were going to have a say in this. So originally, my goal is when I am brought on to bring in an eQMS software system is to find out what the client's needs are. And this is typical. You want to find out business requirements, where you want to go. Now, this is a particularly smaller organization, about 150 employees. It was originally an R&D biotech firm that was found a drug that was going to be a game changer in the oncology realm, and decided they're going to take it all the way to commercialization. And one of their gap analysis was to bring on something to better manage their quality management system, which was 100% paper-based. And there's nothing wrong with that. There are great paper-based quality systems if they're done right. But again, this was an organization that was strictly R&D, would develop a molecule, take it so far, then sell it to a company like a Merck or Pfizer or somebody else that's going to take it the next further steps. So in evaluating these projects, one of the things I've always said to the C-suite people, or as I call them, the checkbook, and it's not an offensive term, if they find it offensive, I'm sorry. You're the guys with the money, you're the ones with the yay or nay and signing the check so that the vendor gets paid and that I get paid, so you're just the checkbook. But I've met some really great members of the checkbook team on the last project, and then I met some that completely threw the project into turmoil. But at the same time, one of my big sticking points to this is that, and I brought this up to everybody, is when we are choosing an eQMS, you have to keep one thing in mind. When you're demoing this project, you don't just want the stakeholders and process owners. You want end users in the room. And you want the end users to make the decision on what is best for them, especially if you're starting from scratch, having a brand new system. And I'm a stickler for this point because they want to have a system that they feel comfortable with. Some systems are designed great. Maybe it's the colors they use, the presentation of the demo, whatever it is. Just some systems look fantastic, and then some just don't look that great. They have a nice package in general in what they're offering, but it just doesn't look user-friendly. And being user-friendly is one of the caveats to having a great eQMS system. So during the evaluation of all these suppliers, it came down to two items, two softwares, and we were going with cloud-based solutions so there wasn't infrastructure needed in setting up separate servers and things of that nature. And mind you, I am not an IT professional. I am a quality management systems consulting professional. But I have, throughout my career, used eQMS solutions such as TrackWise, ETQ, and a few others. And I've implemented these systems at other organizations in my past lives. So I know what to look for. I know what people are going to be familiar with. And name recognition goes a long way, but the flow and ease of use of the system and its capabilities are a lot further. So once it was agreed upon, the end users would make the decision on our 10th day after evaluating, because it was a 10-day process. We held a meeting. The project was selected, and they had opted to bring in 123 compliance. So everything was going great. They decided to switch to VivaVault, and this was because a new CBO and CIO were brought on to the team, and they brought it to our attention. And I'm not saying we were forced into it. Sort of were, but weren't. Originally, because it was so late in the game and we were already on a very tight timeline because we needed it to go live by a certain point, we held the demo, but a lot of the end users weren't included, and they were trying to push forward. So I am one of those people that likes to be the fly in the ointment, as John McClane would love to say, if you're a diehard fan. I made a very strong case in point with this new CIO and this new CBO. Okay, great, you like the software, whatever, but in my research of it, it was a little too new. I think it was a little too green, and I really don't think it was ready for what we were trying to do, and I thought 123 compliance was better. And they were like, well, how about we set up another demo so you can look at it? And I says, it's not so much me, because remember, once I get this in, I'm gone. I'm not a full-time employee. I'm a consultant. Let's get all the end users in here and see what they think of it. So originally not keen on it based on what I read online and seeing some YouTube videos. VivaVault came in, did this really great demonstration, and their doc management piece I thought was really good. I felt it was better than 123 compliance. So at one point I discussed it was like, hey, 123 compliance is Sparta's TrackWise. How about we keep the quality events, investigations, CAPAs, change controls, and all of those elements from 123 compliance, and just use the doc management piece from VivaVault, because I'm not really sold on their quality suite. And they really wanted an all-in-one solution, and there's never, ever a great all-in-one solution. Nobody does it all. And one of the pieces that was really lacking in both softwares was the training element. So they ended up going with a two-piece system. The LMS was Compliance Wire, and then the eQMS and doc management were linked in VivaVault. Now, the process, I wasn't happy about how everything kind of went down. It ended up putting us about 6 weeks behind schedule. And we were already on a tight timeline. So I made it a point to pick up the phone, talk to the representatives of Viva Vault, and said, look, I know you're dealing mostly with the C-suite and two individuals, but you need to understand that the end users had made the original decision, and they are feeling a little betrayed in this. So I said, when you come on board to give them the demo, I said, you've got to really listen and understand their wants and needs, and don't take their they may be sour-faced, upset, a little standoffish. Don't take it personal. It's just that this is what happens when with me getting a lot of these people involved, and then kind of having the rug pulled out from under them, it really took the steam out of their engines. So Viva Vault came on. They gave us access to a sandbox. And one of the first things I did is I became what's known as the Vault Owner, which is very similar to the System Administrator. And I was able to go in and learn probably 70% of the configuration abilities of this software by myself, without any tutorials or help files, simply sitting in my home office one weekend and spending 3 days solid playing with it. And when it was all said and done, I identified gaps, I identified flow problems, and I came up with a flow that was very familiar to what people who have maybe used electronic systems in the past could get used to and glom onto right away. But I also was able to identify the limitations of the systems and where it wasn't a configurable aspect from the software's out-of-the-box capabilities, and we couldn't do any customization because of how tight the timeline was. So I had to find the solution in the process. And for instance, this came during impact assessment. The impact assessment is a field within the quality event deviations realm that's carried out in the initiation phase. I don't agree with where this is placed in the software, but I also wanted the quality person, the initial quality reviewer for the initiation phase, to document the impact assessment, whether it was low, medium, or high, and give a blurb. It didn't have to be the completed blurb, but I did not want the electronic record progressing past a certain point. So originally my concept was, well, why can't I have it in the dialog box that pops up? Well, apparently it's a limitation within the software itself that wouldn't allow that configuration. So working with Viva Vault in a 30-minute phone conversation, they showed me how to configure this so that it had to take place during the supervisor and quality review stages. And then what I did is to make sure it was a compliant flow, was to put in my draft version of a work instruction, which would have become a validated work instruction for the system, is to explain during the QA review processes of this initiation phase, is the QA person cannot advance the record to the initiated state until they document the impact assessment. And now, while the initiator technically could have done it, they could write the initial blurb, that's not a big deal, but the record could not progress past the QA review stage without that impact assessment field being done. So now this is a manage of software limitation and configuration, and where a process has to come into play. And I was able to work this out, develop an entire working work instruction from beginning to end with all components: the initiation phase, the initial review phase, the investigation phase, root cause analysis phase, CAPA and effectiveness check phase, as well as any change control children or things of that nature that would be attached with this particular quality event. And I was able to put this all together in less than 48 hours. So this software has a very easy configuration ability if you're willing to spend time on the admin side of the panel playing around and configuring it. Now, Viva Vault's limitations is their training portion of the QMS is not a learning management system. Its capabilities it doesn't even really have, other than a read and acknowledge assessment piece. You can't do questions that you answer to get a certain percentage before you're considered approved or have trained on an SOP. So that's why we brought in Compliance Wire as the second component. And because Compliance Wire has a connector in the Vault platform, they'll be able to be linked. Now, when you're selecting a QMS, and this is always my thing, if the C-suite or the higher level management is giving you a lot of pushback, you need to make the solid case as to why the end users need to be involved, and the end users need to make the selection. Because these people, these managers, directors, well, not so much managers, but directors and vice presidents are never going to be in the system every single day. Their interaction with the system is going to be less than 1% a month at best. And it may be simply just to look at dashboards they created to see what the key process indicators are showing, or metrics or something of that nature. But make sure that you tell your client, if they're going to implement, whether it's a doc management system or a full eQMS suite, the end user needs to be there, and their opinion should count more than anybody else's, because they're the people that are going to use this software day in and day out. Now, I finished my leg of what was supposed to happen on the project, but a lot of the things that stymied us was a lack of communication between the IT group and the consultants, including myself, that were helping revamp and make the facility PAI ready. And PAI is pre-approval inspection. It's what happens when you file your BLA for a biologic or a new NDA, things of that nature. Make sure your facility's ready, you're meeting GMP requirements, etc. For those of you that don't know, and anybody who's watching this video, pretty much you stumbled upon this, you already know what I'm talking about. But for those of you that are green, just to give you a little insight. Now, a lot of the communication problems stem from the way the implementation of Viva Vault was handled, in the sense of how it was brought on board, the fact that we were already progressing with one software, and the change to going to another so late in the game without any real justification into doing it created a semi-toxic environment that needed to be addressed and worked through accordingly. The problem is the individuals, some of the individuals in the IT group really did not understand their scope of ownership. So when you bring on an eQMS of this nature, IT should never be the system owner. Because, and I will explain this is Viva Vault or 123 Compliance, they're cloud-based solutions. Okay, so IT's sole responsibility is to make sure the network is always up. Because you're going to go to www.whatever your eQMS web address is.com, and you're going to work from there. And IT's capacity is if you're going to use single sign-on capabilities and the connectors between Compliance Wire or your training management system and your doc management system, make sure they work. But IT should never own a quality management system. It should be owned by the stakeholder in the group that is affected most and is using it the most. So this would be quality assurance, regulatory, and doc management. Well, doc management falls under the quality umbrella as well as training. But those organizations are the ones that should truly own a system like Viva Vault, 123 Compliance, TrackWise. Now, IT has a shared ownership in a server base, meaning you're installing your server inside your facility, as opposed to a cloud base, which is a hosted solution on sites such as Amazon or whoever does web hosting services. IT can sort of have a little piece of the stake there if it's based on a platform that they're going to use, such as Salesforce or others, and they're bringing on other softwares such as a LIMS software or a training software that are also built on a similar platform, because they're going to need to maintain some SDLC things and maintain the connectors during upgrades. But a lot of these upgrades they'll get rolled out, and then you have to go through them, and then once you approve the upgrade and get it into the cloud, IT's purpose is to just make sure that your internet's working. That's it. Quality assurance needs to have full ownership of the system. They need to be the managers of the system administrator, or in this case with Viva Vault, the Vault owner, because they're going to be the ones that are going to hand down the changes, and it's going to go through validation, change control. The configuration is going to change at that point, and a system administrator or this vault owner is going to do the reconfiguration, changing nomenclature in fields, developing new workflows within the out-of-the-box capabilities of the configuration piece. IT can share that vault ownership or system admin ownership as a backup. So if I'm the system admin and I'm out sick or on vacation, they could have a lower level IT person that could go in there and make small changes to a field. Say if, we did something, we validated, oh my God, we misspelled the field name, we got to go back in and fix it, something like that. But if it can wait until that person comes back in, that's great. Now, IT could, in a way, manage the security profile. They can build security profiles, but also the vault owner should do this, and the security profile should be worked out during your business requirements session. So this was where the struggles were in this, is that an individual within the IT group, not going to name company names or individual names, was acting very possessive. And whether he felt his job was being threatened or some way, trust me, nobody wanted his job. But he just was acting in such a way that it was constantly creating friction between consultants and the vendor and myself as a consultant. And that kind of stymied us because things he was doing were not very professional in nature, as he was having side conversations with the vendor. He was going in and changing administrator privileges for certain people. He was just doing things I felt was very unprofessional, but I unfortunately could not have a say in that, because I'm just a consultant. I didn't approve of the behavior, but that is something that needs to be handled internally by the client. But at the same time, the individuals that were involved in bringing it on, their way of executing it and doing the switch so late in the game created a lot of turmoil. So how do you fix that turmoil? Well, one of the things I do as a consultant is I make sure that early in the process I go in and meet every single individual that I can meet and try to develop a rapport with them. And yes, it was brought to my attention, everybody's mood's bad, they're upset about this. I said, look, this is nothing I should be responsible to fix, because this is something that you did as the organization, and it went against the original principles we decided on, which was to let the end users make a thing, but I will do what I can to smooth it over. So everybody's upset. I took it upon myself to walk around and say, look, I don't like how it went down either, but let's go watch the demonstration. Let's get as much insight as possible. Who knows, maybe we'll be so impressed. Maybe unicorns and rainbows will fly out of the web browser of this program. Obviously they didn't, but it's kind of smoothing over those edges. Was it my responsibility to do it? No. Did I do it? Yes. Why? Because it wasn't getting me to my end goal, and that is to get the system in, operating, working, and people getting trained on it and using it. So these are some of the obstacles, but one of the things that was really great, and I have to say that I wasn't originally impressed on my initial research on VivaVault, was a lot of my concerns were alleviated in the demo. And even more of those concerns were alleviated when I was able to figure out how to use the configuration piece on my own with no instruction, no tutorials, no help files, and then only needing that 30-minute over-the-phone meeting to say, hey, how can I fix this problem because your dialog box won't let me do this? I thought that was fantastic. But when selecting an eQMS, two, you got to look at the size of the organization. A lot of people are like, they want to go for we want TrackWise because everybody uses TrackWise. TrackWise is the Cadillac or the Lexus, depending on how you want to look at it. It's the Bentley, okay, for eQMS softwares. So you go with the cloud solution, it'd be 1, 2, 3 compliance. Or master control is now becoming more of the Bentley of eQMS systems. Not all organizations needs the all bells and whistles master control or Sparta's TrackWise or things like that. There are lesser known eQMS softwares, and VivaVault's very new, very green for eQMS. They've been around for their clinical stuff and their CRM stuff for quite a while, but their quality docs and things like that are fairly new. Just remember, if you're making that selection, A, get this end user thing up front immediately. The second thing is don't always go for the Cadillac. The Cadillac's not going to not be the answer to all your prayers. And most of all, if a switch comes late in the game, definitely sit down and have these meetings, have these discussions, and figure out what went wrong. And when you start to find turmoil, nip that in the bud immediately. And if you find that turmoil to continue on through behaviors of individuals that may feel threatening, you've had these conversations and continue, that's when you have to make the decision. Do I walk away? Do I work through it? It's really up to you. How much is it going to impede your ability to meet your client's end goal? So I know I'm throwing more of a lesson in there than I originally planned, but wanted to say that as someone who has implemented a few eQMS systems, VivaVault's definitely green. If you decide to go with it, I would say if you're going to try to do the all-in-one suite for the quality side, the eQMS side, definitely doc management's worth a look. Their quality events, deviations, lab investigations, and root cause of that, it's pretty decent. It could use some tweaking, but it'll do. Their change control works just fine. Their document change request, document change control functionality works fine. Their templates and biennial review flows and processes for doc management, completely great. The training element is very weak. Needs, I would say, a couple more years of work, tweaking, and just a lot more input into what it should do. So if you go with VivaVault and you're starting fresh, trying to bring a new eQMS system in, and you look at VivaVault, you'll find it's pretty great. But, excuse me a second. Sorry, didn't mean to make a mess. But if you decide to go with these systems, Master Control is a great one, but also look at things like character limitations. Some of these softwares have severe character limitations. I ran into an issue with VivaVault where the impact assessment description field was only allowing 1,500 characters. 1,500 characters is not a lot of characters to cover an impact assessment. The description fields in the investigation phase, the deviation phase, were limited to 32,000 characters. Now, was it enough? Sure, but I know somebody say, they could write it up in Word and attach it as an attachment. Great, perfect. You want to do that? There goes your audit trail. You're losing the whole purpose of the audit trail by doing that. So these are things that you need to address with your vendor, character limitations on certain fields. And you need to understand what fields are going to be very important, are going to need unlimited characters. Master Control is extremely guilty because during our demonstration, the rep said that certain fields like descriptions, when you're explaining what happened, investigation summary, are limited to 2,000 characters. I was like, really? Well, why do you need to explain everything? And I said to her, how many FDA audits have you been through? How many remediation projects have you worked on? How many consent decrees have you done? I said, I've done 6. I've either been a quality managing consultant, I've been an individual contributor, I've been simply a contractor, I've been a tech writer, I've done everything. And I've been on these consent decree and remediation projects and warning letter remediations and health hazard evaluation remediations. Okay? The last thing the FDA wants to see is short and quick blurbs. They need to know substance. So make sure you're discussing that with your eQMS vendors. How configurable is the system out of the box? Check those description fields. Definitely touch on hypercare. And make sure your end users are involved. And make sure you have that discussion with the upper management and the C-suite that the end users are always the people that should be having the biggest say because they're the ones using it every single day. And that's my point in making this little video about electronic quality management systems and my experiences with VivaVault, 123 Compliance, and Master Control. So I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe. I'll be coming up with lots of videos, and also visit my website, www.geforcequalitysolutions.com. And if you have a consulting project or are aware of a project that needs my expertise and help, don't be afraid to hit me up. It's geforcequalitysolutions@gmail.com. Have a great one.